welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Holman, and we're recording for the week of September 7th, here, or September 9th or 10th. I don't know.
10th.
My date's all messed up. We're the 10th. Good deal.
The week of,
The week of the 10th. Man, oh man, September just hammered onto us right away here.
It's a short week. Everyone's,
it is a
everyone's
short
just thrown
week.
off balance in a short week here.
Yeah. The Labor Day weekend, the Labor Day when you don't do any work, or some of us.
Well, you can't do anything because in Canada, Labor Day, the weather drops to about 5 degrees for 2 or 3 days, and then immediately bounces right back up on the Tuesday. A beautiful day of sunshine on Tuesday. Lots of good stuff this week, Dan. As always.
Man, I love this. Yes.
Yeah, the story about I'll say the benefits, and we'll call it some of the pains of staycation. All the products that are moving from that. We're going to be chatting about that this week. It continues, and it's good to see municipalities are becoming more accommodating in the world of pop-up retail. What does that mean for your store? Is there opportunities to expand? Dan will tell us a bit more about that. Cannabis retailers continue their rapid expansion. In some provinces, it seems not to be enough. In others, maybe too much. So we'll talk about that balance. Dan's going to talk to us about cash.
My favorite topic. Yes.
If you've forgotten, cash is king, and it's good to be the king. And finally, it's a battle of the buttons for the website. What button is best for your biz when it comes to e-commerce? So, a lot of great stories here. The first one comes to us from cbc.ca, and just zeroing right in on outdoor gear. It's selling out left, right, and center as our pandemic staycations rise at a furious pace, leading to lots of retail shortages. So, Dan, tell us more about that.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, is there ever. And God love these outdoor retailers that are having an awesome year. And that, every cloud has a silver lining. I mean, isn't that what your mom told you or your grandma told you? Every cloud has a silver lining. Be positive, look for the good. Well, this is the good for outdoor retail. This pandemic has given us the opportunity to invest more in our values. And I think we talked about core values, last week or the week before, and how our values are changing. And outdoor really feeds into that, value equation right now. And the outdoor stores are reeling, with some great success. We talked about, in this article with CBC, they spoke a lot with Matt Brody, who's one of the head merchandisers over at MEC, about the categories that were just in and out of stock. But if you read the article, this is for every single retailer out there, every independent retailer. Don't care about the other guys, only the independents here at the Wealthy Retailer. But if you listen to the message in that story, and they did a great job of highlighting it. 1 week we will have great sales because we got a shipment of new goods. The next week there's nothing available again, and sales plummet. This is the message for retail. New goods sell. Nobody walks in your store and says, hey man, show me something from last year. It doesn't happen. Right. New goods drive sales. And in the outdoor world, we live in this, buy twice a year kind of strategy, or have lived in that. All the technical wear, we're out there buying in August for next September, and it's crazy. And they're shifting, outdoor shifting. You heard Patagonia last week talk about really reinvesting in, the independent retailer, in their merchants, in their retailers, give them more product, get them more product. They recognize that there's opportunity right now. And we're going to go through this elevated, focus on me, staycation type retail all the way through spring. And if you're not able to predict that in your business, you're going to miss the boat. And you've got to be driving product into your store. And every conversation I have with an outdoor retailer is the same. Man, oh man, I'm challenged to get inventory. I can't find inventory. Find inventory. Can't find it because you're looking in the same old.
So look into next spring. When you think timeline, one of the questions that goes into my head, Dan, is of course dollars have shifted, right? You're not going to Hawaii. You're not doing that. So it's going into these staycations. Do you think this massive shift has happened and a big chunk of it's here to stay? And by that meaning that it's driven a new happiness factor that, geez, I'm loving this more, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be just next spring, but this is gonna continue for some time.
You know, in the province that we're in Alberta, we've got this, 38 days of really fabulous weather to look forward to every year. And we're exploring, I think, I don't remember who it was that spoke about, the Kananaskis, hiking trails, and
Yeah.
the trailheads that have been dead for years are now, the parking lots are overflowing, and you continue to look for that next trailhead to go hiking. And I think we found the diamonds in our own backyard.
Right.
I think I can speak, personally, a guy that travels a couple hundred days a year, how much I miss travel, but also how much I've enjoyed exploring, my own backyard.
Yep.
And literally, in some cases, my own backyard. And I think that that's here to stay. I think that I read yesterday, airline travel in the United States is running at 40% capacity over last year.
Okay.
Here we are 8 or 9 months into this thing, 8 months into this thing, and travel in the US has returned to about 40% of what it was a year ago. Canada, we're still, running down in that 18 to 22%. And I think it's going to stay that way. I'm happy to see that. And we're going to see people invest more in outdoor, more in themselves, more in home. This is going to be the best holiday period for retail that we've had in a very long time. If you're in home and gift, boy, oh boy, I hope you bought right.
Buckle up.
Yep.
Buckle up. Well, when those borders do finally reopen, we might be able to take a little journey down to Miami. And our next story comes from MiamiTodayNews.com. It's something where it's echoing around the country, where they're talking about becoming much more flexible in their zoning and their retail opportunities for pop-up retail, be it nonprofits or the arts or retail or even restaurants. With these types of changes and that new flexibility, Dan, what type of opportunities do you see this presenting for our small local retailers?
Well, I think this gives us the opportunity to put our toes in the water instead of jumping, head first. I think this gives us an opportunity to sample our marketplace. Let's get proof of concept here. Let's go do a pop-up, across town in a neighboring city or a neighboring town, and let's try it. This idea of short-term pop-up retail is not new. You'll remember, back in December, January, we had Steve Brooks, who is the pop-up expert. I mean, this guy has built a world-renowned business on the pop-up retail model. And this opportunity that the pandemic for us has created, in short-term pop-up retail, means that every single retailer now has the opportunity to test expansion. And the ones that have long thought about being, perhaps in a mall, I'd never understand why, but perhaps thought about being in a mall, now there's an opportunity to go and do a 30, 60, 90-day stint in a mall and test the traffic, test the water, test the rates, test your factors, or across town. I mean, if you look at every downtown core in Canada right now, boy, there's lots of opportunity to pop up a shop. And landlords, are probably going to become more and more open to lower investment, short-term leases. They're not going to spend 150 grand or $75 a foot, building out your space for you to exit quickly.
Right. Get a little creative on that front. Well, if you didn't like your lease rates up here, from this story, they talked about it was $300 a square foot.
Yeah. There's no question.
Get down to a couple hundred.
And we're going to see that in different areas. We see certainly elevated, lease rates in those hot retail pockets across the country. But here we are, Northern Alberta, our retail rates are going to soften a little bit, which is good for retail. It's good to test the water.
Yep. When you think about testing the water, Dan, I'm a small local retailer. I like the idea. There's an area of town we're not in. I want to expand there. When it comes to your team, and kind of that dividing your own team, because you got to send some leadership over there to help run it. What's your experience with that with some of the retailers you worked with?
I think that we always see a bit of attrition when we try to split our team up and send, and depending on distance, we're not going to have a store in Edmonton, Alberta, and drive south 3.5 hours to Calgary, yeah, every day with an employee, or, we're going to have to hire a team that's specific to that location. And I believe in the power of local. I believe in the power of community. I'm going to hire somebody from within that community, right, and I'm going to bring them into my fold, let them adapt to our values, and then re-represent that in that neighboring community or opportunity. So certainly, we have to be careful not to split teams, not to assume that someone wants to leave the comfort of the home that you've created for them, yeah, to go find something else or go work something else.
Do you think that's one of the bigger barriers to that, be it fear or just that's probably one of the bigger things holding a small retailer back from taking that pop-up step?
Yeah, a lot of small retailers, while they got into this, world that's riddled with risk and mediocrity, they fear risk, and they bring every excuse possible. I said to a retailer yesterday, maybe it's time we open another door. I mean, it's like I had 3 heads.
Yeah.
Are you crazy? Listen, it's not a bad idea. Yeah. This is the time to look at expansion. There will be opportunity. And if your vision sees more doors, now's the time to start looking at that opportunity. We've seen through this last 6 months, we've seen retailers close doors and open doors. There is a mix. And that retailer that's prepared to take a little bit of risk and not use excuse, yep, to prevent growth, they're gonna see some great opportunities.
Right on. Okay, well, folks, reminder, this podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. They're here to listen and help you with the retail solutions to make your store more successful, from the latest point of sale software to merchandise intelligence with open to buy plans and more. Let them help you find your cutting edge retail solution today. Be sure to visit retailbycrs.com. Okay, our next story, we're talking about the world of cannabis growth in Canada. There's a quote in the story that Ontario is Canada's most populous province and is home to 158 stores as of the end of August. Sounds like a lot, but it's very low on a per capita basis. About 1 every 92,000 residents. In comparison, our great province here in Alberta has 515 stores, which translates to 1 for every 8,500 people.
Yeah.
Dan, what's your thoughts on the state of expansion in the world of cannabis?
This is not because Albertans are so in love with cannabis. This is purely because
we are home to Tommy Chong.
We are home to Tommy Chong
here in Edmonton.
I was just gonna throw out a Cheech and Chong reference, but I'm gonna hold off.
Don't go there, Dan. Don't go.
No,
I went there.
No.
I shouldn't have gone there.
Hey man, what's that? No, I'm not. Listen, this is not because we are, the great cannabis community of the country. It's because Alberta is an entrepreneurial province, the only entrepreneurial province. Ontario is lagging so far behind because they are not an entrepreneurial province. They're not an entrepreneurial government. They are a union-driven province. They are a government-owned province. When you look at beer and liquor, I mean, I've long had this aggravation with Ontario. You don't, if you work the night shift, you ain't getting a beer after work. You can't buy it. No off-site sales. Manitoba is a little bit softer on that, and we're going to see, some cannabis opportunity there. But let's just talk about, why do we have so many cannabis stores? Let's answer, how do we have so many what would seem to be successful liquor stores, beer and liquor stores, and what happens when we open our marketplace up to the entrepreneurial spirit? We get great experiential stores. if you've ever spent any time in an LCBO store, Liquor Control Board of Ontario retail store, they're better than they used to be,
Right.
but they pale in comparison to a great cannabis store right now. And what we're building here in Alberta, mimics or mirrors what we're seeing in the States that came out 2 and 3 years ago, and recognize that, wait a minute, I need to build a better retail store. I need to build a better environment for people to, learn, explore, sample, whatever, cannabis. And it's going to continue to expand.
Yep.
When we get back to measuring performance, these other provinces are going to be looking at Alberta and going, holy crap, how are these guys doing it? How are they generating that kind of tax revenue, that kind of dollar? How can they have, one store for every 8,500 people? Is that too many? Maybe, but
hard
the
we'll
call the herd.
The beverage side of it hasn't even really exploded yet, and so that'll be very.
And when you look at companies that are really good, good merchants. Look at Alcanna, really solid merchant, scooping up smaller independent, beer and liquor stores. They're good merchants.
Yeah.
They've got good locations. They know where they want to be. They're doing a little better job than, other provinces have done. I mean, Nova Scotia, probably one of the worst provinces anywhere for beer and liquor sales, and will lag in cannabis, 2 years behind.
Right.
Where the entrepreneurial provinces live.
So what do you think happens with, Alberta? There's 515 stores. I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to guess there's probably 250 brands within that number. A lot of mom and pop type individual stores.
Yes. Yep.
Should they be eyeing up now, Dan? Like, okay, you need to, it's not just the experience, it is your brand too. And we're going to quickly get to a world where one's not going to cut it. I'm not saying you have to have 100 locations, but you should start thinking about, what can I do to get to 5 or 6 locations under one really good brand? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, you absolutely have to look at growth. You have to be forecasting that growth forward. Certainly economies of scale are going to play into this. The more doors I can get open, smaller footprint doors, the more revenue or the more market share I'm going to own. And, again, we lean harder on that neighborhood store. I may not drive downtown to go to that cannabis store when I've grown to, appreciate and like the guy that's in my community, and that the power of community. I'm going to go see Matt. Hey, you want to try something? You want to try baking? You want to do this? You want to do that? Go see my friend Matt. He's around the corner. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, in Canada today, I think our judgment is gone. Cannabis is legalized. It's no different than beer or wine. You got to embrace it. You can't,
still that little bit of that transition period of, like you say, it was illegal not too long ago, and just making more the norm of everything. So it's going to be interesting to watch that. Like you say, I like your view where Alberta really doesn't get in the way of entrepreneurism and just and we'll let the open market
dictate where this happens.
There should only be 400 stores in Alberta.
Right. And maybe that's where we're going to land. And, maybe we shouldn't have more than 70% of the stores north of Red Deer, but we're going to figure it out. The marketplace will dictate, growth or contraction, expansion and contraction. And we as a government should not be trying to control that, but rather allowing that entrepreneurial spirit. They're controlling product no different than what we would see in any other province. I've got to buy it from the same place as the guy next door, or different, suppliers that are controlled, but it's service. Service trumps all.
Yep. Unless you happen to have cash.
Oh my gosh, if you have cash, you are the queen.
Dan, in our 12 steps to retail success, you talk about cash. Cash is king. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. Cash is king or cash is queen in your store. The true definition of profitability in retail does not come from IMU, MMR, EBITDA, uh, earnings before interest, tax, and adjustments. It doesn't come from net income before tax or NIBIT. It doesn't come from any crazy acronym that we've learned or been schooled along the way. It comes from cash. Cash comes from having the right inventory at the right time, in the right categories in your store, and recognizing that the power I have to generate cash is to turn inventory. Too many retailers struggle with, marking down goods or turning shirts into dollars, dresses into $20 bills. You can't have brown bananas hanging in your store. If a bright, yellow ripe banana is worth $1, how much is a brown faded banana worth? It's not. Unless you're my mom making banana bread, it's not worth anything. And retailers seem to forget, the cash is what makes my store go around. Too many people that I talk to, too many educated retailers hammer me with the power of their GMROI. And gross margin return on investment is a fictitious number. It does not drive cash in your business. I can have a really high GMROI and still not generate enough cash to pay my expenses. We've got to look at the generation of cash in your business. And no matter, I sound like this greed monger all the time when I'm talking about cash, but it is the secret sauce in retail that eludes too many retailers. They don't recognize how to generate cash and the power of generating cash. Somewhere along the way, their accountant has trained them about cost of goods sold. It's a bullshit number. Doesn't mean anything in retail anymore. It's not about cost of goods sold. It's about your cost of purchase. How do I control my cost of purchase to generate cash margin, not gross margin? And I have this argument, this ongoing argument with a good friend of mine all the time. He's an accountant all the time. I'm like, yeah, your white paper profit's fabulous, but it doesn't mean I've got any cash in the bank.
Yep.
We look at things like cash accounting, like farmers in the day, man. That's how they looked at their business. This is what I generate in revenue. This is what it cost me to buy inventory. Here's what I got left over to pay my operating expenses. And that is pure cash. Growing cash in your store means that you're recognizing the power of open to buy, using open to buy dollars, the dollars left to fill in a category, not a store, not a vendor, but a category or a classification. Every class in your store sells on its own merit, on its own curve. And we've got to feed some classes that need more inventory, that are generating positive cash, and starve other classes. We're not socialists here. We're not looking to save the starving children in our store. We're looking to feed the fat kids, feed the hungry. And it comes by recognizing, where I should be applying open to buy dollars every single month, because open to buy dollars, the creation of that opportunity to buy, generates more cash. Well, I'm going to get crazy here, man.
Oh, geez, why? I remember a conversation with my accountant. He told me, he said, Rob, what did he say? There's 3 types of accountants. There's good ones and there's bad ones. Okay, so anyways, on to our next.
Take that back for every account that we love to death out there.
My guy, he's an outgoing accountant. I caught him staring at my shoes once. Our next story, this comes from the Shopify.com. It's their blog, so we know the bias in this headline, but this is about the buttons, chasing those dollars and cents. And Shopify says, if you use anyone other than Shopify payments, you are giving up dollars in order to chase those cents. Dan,
right.
What are your thoughts on this story?
Again, we're going to take this where it's written from. It is a Shopify blog, but they make some really valid points. I think their rate today on a decent paid plan, $70 or $80 a month, it's about 2.7% collection plus 30 cents a transaction. And too many of us are getting caught up chasing, you know, 0.25% or, you know, 4 basis points to try to lower that merchant fee. I'm not saying, you know, run willy-nilly, but I'm saying their argument, their position absolutely has merit. If they're converting more shoppers, you're generating more cash. And here we go. Let's just go back to the previous conversation about the power of cash. You know, Shopify, you know, claims they have, I shouldn't have said it like that, claims they have a higher conversion rate, claims that they have more recovery opportunity than the other big 3 commerce platforms or shopping cart platforms. You know, they've got a lower baseline in payments. They have no hidden fees. I mean, here we are in the point of sale world. You know, we have conversations with 20 payment processors a week.
Right.
And, you know, who should we be using and who shouldn't we be using? We've strategically aligned ourselves with, you know, 2 signature payment processors, maybe 3, I should say. You know, Shopify being a payment processor on their platform. You know, we're looking at, you know, where do these payment processors live? What are the hidden fees? What are they charging our retailers, you know, to connect to our point of sale systems? And Shopify's been very good at being transparent. They are very, very transparent. You know, their conversion rates are about 1.5 times higher than the baseline. You know, baseline numbers are published and produced. Baseline numbers come from Woo, Big, Magento, you know, all these other shopping cart platforms. Yeah. And there are retailers that are out there that spend $100,000 to improve their checkout process. And Shopify brings that down to the independent for us. You know, if they can improve our conversion rate by 1.5 times, what does that mean in cash flow? And why am I chasing, you know, 0.25%? You know, there's no
sense of why you feel that they're able to have a better conversion rate.
Well, I think that they've made that process easier. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Man, oh man, make the checkout process clean and simple. Make it seamless. Make it easy. You know, when Shopify recognizes me as a shopper, I check out with a click, right? Yeah. When I'm on another platform, I go through, you know, you've been on sites, Rob, where you've got to go through the form fill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Fill out these 20 fields.
You're hoping your computer remembers all your data for you.
Right. Yeah, right. Which is probably the most, you know, insecure place or unsecure place to be. You know, your computer remembering. Come on, fill my credit card number. You know, fill my passwords here. But you know, Shopify has come up with Shop Pay, you know, with recognizing their shoppers and changing that process, that, you know, checkout process to be better. And you know what? I love that they're out here tooting their own horn and saying, you know, I do a better job chasing chargebacks for you. You know, chargebacks are one of the biggest deterrents in e-commerce, right? It's easy for me to say I didn't make that charge. I didn't buy that.
What kind of numbers are those these days, Dan? Like what?
I think the number is 17% of all purchases online are pushed back onto the retailer as a chargeback.
Just fully disputed.
Yeah.
And that leaves the retailer out both money and product.
Yeah. And, you know, Shopify, I think the baseline, if I remember correctly, the baseline is about a 20% win for the merchant. So the merchant wins 1 in 5 chargebacks. Right. And Shopify runs, you know, at about, you know, 35 or 37% in their chargebacks. They have, you know, they have an automated dispute process or dispute response, I think they call it. And it's using Shopify. If you use Shopify payments, they're protecting you. And if you've ever used Shopify or look at a Shopify platform, every single sale comes through with fraud analysis on it, every single sale. And they're going to say, hey, the risk of fraud is a little higher here. Yeah. Do some homework. Or this checkout, you know, doesn't resemble anything that we've seen in fraud.
I think probably over a month, maybe 2 months ago, there was a story about Shopify on the, I'll just ask the question, when do we refer to them more as a bank versus an e-commerce platform? What are your thoughts there looking ahead?
I mean, this is the power of the entrepreneurial spirit. They recognize that, and this is, certification in Canada. There is a chunk of data that flows that has to be encrypted. And when you use these third-party plugins or third-party connectors or bridges between your debit machine and the payment processor, we end up being challenged. And so it's not that these guys, yes, they want the revenue, no question.
Yeah.
That's part of their development, but they're creating a secure checkout that doesn't require another bridge that costs a significant amount of money. I can tell you, bridges for us with many payment processors, run in the double digit every month and triple digit a year. So we're paying hundreds of dollars per year for a bridge, and then we're paying a monthly fee for that bridge. And we sometimes ignore those costs, where Shopify's very upfront with it. And so I'm going to say, they're doing what they need to do and tooting their own horn. They're doing a good job, whether I like it or not, whether I believe they're a bank or not a bank. They're doing a good job.
And they're Canadian,
wish their service
so
was better.
We got to root them on for that.
We got to love them. Too bad they chose Ottawa, but
Okay, well, we'll have the link to that story in this week's newsletter. If you haven't yet, be sure to head to retailbycrs.com, folks, to sign up. In addition to today's stories that we discussed, there will be links for additional stories. We've got one talking about the getting battle ready for more disruption. We've been through significant, but always more to come, and getting ready for that. The benefits of retail investing in the community, a story about a mall, what they've done, and I'll say the rewards they've reaped from it. We've got a story on a retailer who discusses the benefits of their mystery box sales program. So that was kind of fun. And a story about a store selling, if you can believe this, one item. So talk about creating a different experience for their customers. We'll have that link and more. Folks, thanks for joining us on the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. Again, it's brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Remember, at their core, they believe in having real and relevant relationships, offering solution-based sales and services, maintaining a client-centered bottom line focus, and providing credible and complete care. Remember, folks, they exist to make retailers better.
Yeah, and if you want to chat retail, if you want to talk retail, no obligation, no cost, just to talk, head over to thewealthyretailer.com, grab a slot in my calendar, and let's spend 15 to 30 minutes together and chat. And yes, absolutely sign up for our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Share it out there to your friends and neighbors, and let us know if there's anything that you'd like us to cover in an upcoming podcast.
Right on. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, man. Have a great week.